You likely will remember the story of a mentally ill man accused of shooting and killing an Oklahoma County deputy and then leading responders on a high-speed chase. Benjamin Plank avoided prosecution after the state failed to restore his mental competency within the required 2 years. The family of his victim, Deputy Bobby Swartz, understandably frustrated.
My father deserves justice. He deserves better than what he's gotten out of this system. He gave 25 years of his life. Mark almost gave his life for the same thing. And for it just to be a shoulder shrug, hey, we're not going to hold anybody accountable, it's unacceptable.
Court documents show Plank repeatedly refused to take his medication during treatment, and a new law that takes effect November 1st addresses this exact situation. SB 1089 states that periods of time where a suspect refuses medication will not count towards the 2-year deadline to restore mental competency. Now, this was a bill that passed the state House and Senate unanimously. It was then vetoed by the governor and then had that veto overridden by lawmakers. Again, it goes into effect November 1st. So on our panel today is two of the bill's sponsors, State Senator Paul Racino of Oklahoma City, State Representative Mark Lawson of Sapulpa, also our current House Majority Leader. Thanks for being here as well.
Pleasure.
And also with us this week, Jason Musgrove, Public Policy Coordinator with NAMI Oklahoma, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Senator, let me start with you because Bobby Swartz and his family, a constituent of yours. So a bill like this that you sponsored, now going into law, I'm sure it's personal for you.
Yeah, and I was very, very, very proud to carry it, right? When you see your constituents suffering through this, and truthfully, their family has not gotten justice. And that is the one thing that has really bothered me through this whole thing. All this deputy did was go to serve an eviction notice, and he lost his life because of it. And then for a man to get his criminal charges dismissed because the state of Oklahoma couldn't restore competency within 2 years is a travesty in and of itself.
Representative, this law actually does a lot of things. That, talking about the timeline and if you're not taking medication, then it stops the clock, so to speak. That's just one thing. And there's been a lot of talk about the struggles that the state is having right now with mental health and resources in the State Department. What are some of the things that you are excited about that goes into effect November 1st?
Yeah, well, public safety is, of course, our top priority. My heart goes out to the Swartz family that they happen to be dealing with this. But we want to make sure that the public knows that justice will be served, that public safety is important to us, but also for the accused. These are folks that we have determined are not mentally well. And we have said that they need to have certain treatments to restore their mental competency. And the law prior to Senate Bill 1089 had a very strict 2-year window. And oftentimes we were not adequately meeting the mental health needs of the accused. And I think just across the board, whether it's for victims, whether it's the justice system, or whether it's the accused and the mentally unwell, we're going to be much more prepared to address those needs in the future.
Jason, we spoke earlier, we agree that there's been a lot of failures in the state. We've done reporting here at KOCO about the lengthy delays just getting people into the competency process, that people will sit in jail in county jails across the state waiting for this to happen. And you're excited about a lot of things that are in this bill that's going into law.
Of course, yeah. The system as it currently stands has clearly had some failures. There have been some shortcomings, a lack of communication, a lack of accountability. The hope for this bill is that it will create a better system of accountability. It will protect both the victim's family and the accused, and having that window open for new possibilities is always very encouraging.
Are there any concerns that you have or things that the fellow advocates in your space that are coming from a different, obviously, angle here have, obviously this hasn't taken effect yet, so we don't truly know sometimes how the laws are going to roll out, what the impact is going to be. What are you going to be looking for?
We just want there to be a protection of public safety interests, but we also want there to be a protection of civil rights and the mental well-being of people going through the competency restoration process. We obviously want justice to be done, but we also want to make sure that people that are sick get the treatment that they deserve.
Senator, do you think this new law is going to accomplish a lot of that? And how does it do that?
Yeah, and so one of the things that excites me about this bill, especially, is, after 2 years, if the DMH or a provider believes that they are getting close to competency, they can petition to the court to say, hey, we need an extension of about 2 years. So this way, this person can continue to get their treatment. And at the same time, once they become competent, then they can stand trial. So I don't disagree with him at all. I think that they should have treatment, and I think we should get them back to competency. But at the same time, once they have it, they should be held accountable.
He talked about accountability. I think you're talking about with the state, correct? To make sure that it's not just the accountable for the people who maybe be accused in horrible crimes like the one that we just talked about, but also accountability within the state to make sure that they are doing their part. Is there language written into this bill that where the check marks, Representative, where basically there's ways to make sure that steps are being taken, that they are following the directives that you are laying out?
Yeah, so there are some provisions in there. If this 2-year window is approaching, that the prosecutors, the judges, the victims, and their families have to be notified that we are scheduling a subsequent hearing. If a person has been compliant with treatment and they're on their way to competency, or they've not been compliant, it allows for the court and the judge to continue to review whether or not keeping this person in custody is of benefit for the accused, for the victim, for justice in general. What I would like to say is, in an ideal world, Senate Bill 1089 is not needed in the future. I think some of the impetus behind the bill was that the state entered into a consent decree earlier in the spring. Right. And the provisions really of that consent decree, or really why we are in this position, is because the state was failing to restore competency for hundreds of Oklahomans in this situation. And that is what I think is the primary reason why we have so many folks who are not well that are approaching this 2-year window, because we haven't done a good job of doing so. The legislature is continuing to talk about how we get better at that. Of course, we have provisions in the consent decree that we must follow, but ideally, we're meeting people where they are. We're restoring competency quickly. We're serving justice quickly. And like I say, hopefully in a couple of years' time, or very shortly, the provisions of Senate Bill 1089 are a thing of the past, because we're not getting anywhere close to that 2-year window.
Because, Senator, as I understand it, a lot of these, when there were failures, when things weren't happening, and maybe even when people were being released, a lot of that was happening in silence without the public, especially the people who need to know these things, weren't finding out.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a great point. So some of the stuff in this bill says every year, the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse must give an input so that people know where they're at status-wise on the people that are serving these competency restoration process. But if there's a chance that the person may be released, within 60 days, they have to notify the families, they have to notify the prosecuting attorneys, they have to notify the judges, and they have to notify the district attorneys. Those are some of the guardrails that this bill has put in provisions to make sure the public is protected.
Jason, NAMI basically serves as a resource for families of people. There's so many families who are touched by mental illness, and so there's people looking for support. When you speak with lawmakers and people who are crafting this policy that ends up becoming law, what are some of the things that you tend to look out for so that you can keep those families in mind as much as possible?
We want to make sure the NAMI's first priority, first and foremost, is that someone going through a mental illness or a mental health crisis is properly cared for if they need that care. And the hope for this bill is that during the competency restoration process, everyone who needs to be in the know remains in the know. And that closes off any possibility for the state to be sued. It leaves victims' families more assured that they are safe. And it also allows the family members of this person going through the restoration process, awaiting for their trial, don't just linger in county jails or linger in Veneta. And
how much of that lingering is an issue? We only got about 20 seconds here, but is that a common thing where people just go, we don't know what's happening?
Yes. Of course.
I would say that's why we are in a consent decree, is because we haven't done a good job of addressing the issue.
Well, gentlemen, we appreciate it. We're going to be talking more about this. You can find our second panel discussion online. Look for that on our KOCO.com website, on our Facebook, on our YouTube page. But gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.